Hey, time to look at some rap albums, and today I'm going to be looking at Young Jeezy and Rick Ross. So without wasting any time, let's start with this, Boys in the Hood. This is a group featuring Young Jeezy along with a rapper named Jody Breeze and a couple others who, no disrespect, but I'm forgetting their names right now. And they were all from the Atlanta area, and this CD was put out on Bad Boy in 2005. Haven't listened to this one in years, but it was a solid album. Young Jeezy would soon leave the group, and they would put out another album a couple years later, also on Bad Boy, but I never heard that one. So we're still in 2005, and Young Jeezy would put out his first full-length album. This is Let's Get It, Thug Motivation 101, 2005 on Def Jam. It's my favorite song on here. I'm going to go with Tear It Up with Lloyd and Slick Paula. He always had the snowman theme going through his entire career. And this got a lot of hype at the time. I found mainstream fans were interested, underground fans were interested, gangster rap fans were into it, lyrical fans were finding something of value within it. Ad-libbing's a thing that's been in hip-hop since the beginning, been in music since pretty much the beginning, but he really made it a prominent part of his rapping style and became what he's known for. I don't have the second album. I forget that one's called, but I think that was one of his best releases, and I kind of wish I owned that. But we're going to go on to the third album. This is 2008's The Recession. Put-ons on here. My President with Nas. Little Boosie's on here. I think I like this one better than the debut. Moving on, we got the fourth album, Thug Motivation 103, Hustler's Ambition. Fabulous, Jadakiss, 2 Chainz, Trick Daddy, Lil Wayne, Andre 3000. A lot of the biggest names in the South on this album. And I've always actually found Young Jeezy's success fairly encouraging. He's not very mainstream sounding. Always kind of kept the gangster rap roots. And he went on to put out yet another, probably another 5 albums after this. I just lost track. Back when I was listening to a lot of Young Jeezy, I got this here, USDA Corporate Outlaws Volume 1. So USDA was Young Jeezy's group with Slick Pulla and Blood Raw. And I remember I got this. Just kind of makes you think of the good old days. I remember I got this from a gas station or a convenience store in Mississauga back when mixtapes in physical form were a big thing. And finally, we have the debut full-length album by the aforementioned group USDA. This is called Cold Summer, the Authorized Mixtape. This one was good, not great. Haven't listened to it in a long time. So this era, and around the 2005, when Jeezy first came out, this was around the same time that Rick Ross also emerged as a big name. And I always kind of grouped them together, both coming from the South at the same time. You couldn't get away from them in the hip-hop industry. They were just on everyone's albums. Everyone was on their albums. Have they worked together? I should know that. I can't really recall. For years, I think there was a little bit of rumors about a little bit of tension between the two camps, but I don't think it ever blew up into a public thing or anything actually happening. So Rick Ross, this is his debut album, Port of Miami. Obviously, he is from Miami. And I became interested in him because I haven't been to Florida in almost 20 years. But the last time I was there was in 2005, and his first big song, what was that called? Hustlin'. I remember I'd see that on the TV and hear it in the Miami area, and I just kind of took that back home with me. And then a couple months later, the album was released, so I picked it up. I think I like the first couple songs better. Push It, Blow. I like Getaway. The second Rick Ross album was called Trilla, another great release. Don't have that one. I bought it on iTunes at the time. So now we're going to move on to the third Rick Ross album, Deeper Than Rap. This might be my personal favorite. Broken case. But his profile had risen at this point because he became immersed in a feud with 50 Cent. And it's strange to see how that all turned out, because 50 Cent was dipping a bit by that point, but he was still just a couple years removed from being one of the biggest stars in the world. When 50 Cent first came out, I was in college, and it was crazy how popular he was. I was never a fan. But fast forward 15 years, and Rick Ross is definitely the more prominent hip-hop artist all these years later. So, if you ask me, although he never quite reached 50 Cent level, he won the long game, I'd say. And the last Rick Ross album I own is the fourth one, the Teflon Don. I did like this album, but I found it unremarkable, and I just kind of fell off after that. But he's still popular. And his last full-length album, I forget what it was called, but I did give that a couple of spins, and that was a very solid release. Easy 7 out of 10. And when I've heard a verse from Rick Ross, I'm always into it. That's it. Two of the last 20 years' biggest stars from the South, Rick Ross and Young Jeezy, and I'll see you next time.